status of the highway facility, the project budget, and discussion on the potential to complete the salt bar replacement portion of the project. You're on that.
Thank you. Okay, so this is our first update on the project since it started last August, so I'm kind of excited to do this. A lot of interesting stuff in here, and then kind of at the tail end of it, we want to discuss, possible options of other things we can do now given the stats we're at. We sort of discussed it when we came in to talk about it, and we were going through the budget review, approval, and adjustments, that this was a possibility that we would come back here, but we wanted to be farther along in the project before we proposed reincorporating some stuff into the budget. So the picture up here, I'll just say I took this yesterday morning. So we've now gone from a rendering of the building to this is what it actually looks like today. So it's pretty exciting to come along. It's been a schedule, so pretty happy. That looks very much like the picture. That's a real one of the rendering. So project update, the main building construction is about 75% complete. We're projected for substantial completion in January, completion of January of 2025, I'll lost my words, which is about 3 to 4 months ahead of schedule. They're going to start doing some turnover in November, so this is actually a pretty conservative date. Hopefully we don't have any other issues being this far along in the completion. We shouldn't. The Cliff Jones upgrades, which is utilities and sprinklers, are about 95% complete. So those are the original components. The next few pieces I put together, what I tried to do so that people could go back and reference the original budgets was basically keep it in a very similar format to what we had before. So this is a very similar breakdown. The difference here is the way things were contracted is that the new building and Cliff Jones were done as one contract. So we had those broken out in the original proposal and budget. Now they're in one line item, one contract. What we have here is that we're currently contracted and on track for the new highway building and Cliff Jones improvement to be $17,380,948. Our current projected incidentals, this works, which is significantly below what was originally budgeted. If we look at that item, project incidentals, just skipped it. They're at projected at 3.8 million. Which is actually slightly higher than what we had originally projected. The two key components to that is there was lifts for the internal building purchased off of state contract, which we didn't have broken out in a separate line item. So in order to incorporate them and compare apples to apples, I put them in here. The other portion that ran slightly higher on that was the utility coordination. We had to relocate, I think, 5 different companies on a set of wires that ran through the middle of where the building is. And each of them had a relocation fee to move those wires around to get to the cell tower in the back. And that ended up being a little bit more than we had anticipated. So that's why those are the 2 main reasons that incidental number is slightly higher than we originally projected. At this point in the project, we're keeping a contingency, but it's not nearly as big as it was originally because of the percentage that we are complete. There's just less risk to the finish. This number is pretty conservative though, based on what we have left and what could go wrong. So that's what we're currently holding for contingency. As you can see, that total there is significantly lower than we originally projected. The approved bond amount for the project, based on what these numbers were originally, is $28,250,000. But right now, we believe we're going to come in right around that $21,629,000 range. Which is basically $6,620,367 under the bonded amount.
Yeah, before you move on to the next slide, I just was wondering if you could explain to those who may not be aware, what is exactly is project incidentals and also project contingency?
Yep. So project incidentals are costs that we know we're going to incur, but they're not related to the asset, to the construction of the building. So they're things like engineering, furniture purchases, equipment purchases, things of that nature. Paying RG&E for the new gas service, paying Monroe Water Authority for the gas. It's like $15,000 for them to tap the line. So it's sort of fees. Legal fees that might come in. We had some insurances that we picked up at a certain point for once the building was up in that. The term that might be used would be soft cost, things of that nature. but then in combination with some actual equipment and our furniture budget's in there. So that's the incidental budget. So our construction oversight and campus management is in there, and our design for MRB, which were the two biggest part of that. They represent almost 3/4 of this amount. So our design, engineering, and construction oversight are in that. Contingency is essentially typically a percentage of the project that is held for unforeseens.
Right.
So these are the costs that you can't see. You know, all those things I just mentioned, you know that they're there, they're possible, they're tangible enough to put a number to. Contingency is for the things that aren't tangible, the things that are hidden, the things that can't be found. You know, this was originally 1.2 million, a little over 1.2 million, which was 5% of the project. Now that we're this far along and complete, we haven't had to eat into that in a drastic way. So we've adjusted this.
So what happens to that 425,000 if you do not use any more of it?
Then we never borrow against it, right? So it doesn't get spent. That's how we ended up this far under, is by not spending the allowable amount, and that's pretty much been my goal since we started. I spend a lot of time on it, try to really watch every little thing we can do and self-perform. We've had a few things where we got a price on something that had to be adjusted, and it was something that we could complete ourselves, so we didn't, add that cost in there. So yeah, at the end of the day, what we thought we might have to bond and borrow 28 million on, we won't be borrowing that amount. So that debt won't go against the town or the taxpayers. It'll be dramatically less.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, is that?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt your question.
No, that's fine. I just want to make sure I answered it.
No, you did.
Okay. So at this time, given that budget update, we wanted to revisit the scope. So our current scope covers the large building, the 82,000 square foot building that has truck parking, maintenance bays, staff facilities, and office space, as well as the Cliff Jones upgrade, which includes spring sprinklers in the entire building, which is huge for that roughly $3 million asset to not have sprinklers. It was very unfortunate, so we were able to correct that. So what we want to revisit is the original scope, the February 9th, 2023 presentation for what was needed at the facility included replacement of the existing salt barn. It was removed to ensure that the bid package, was as minimal as possible, and that for budget protection was the only reason the salt barn replacement was removed prior to bid. The salt barn is 40 years old. It was built in the 80s. It's approaching the end of its useful life. The new barn would be built out of more corrosion-resistant materials. It would be slightly larger, hold some additional salt, which reflects the growth of the town since the 80s when the other building was built. And the existing barn, given it does have some useful life left and it's not completely gone, we would keep it and reutilize it for dry storage, like topsoil, which is huge. In the spring of the year, when we're doing lawn repairs and different stuff like that, have some dry materials that aren't affected by the weather would be big. So we do plan to continue to use the existing building until it is fully used its lifespan, and it needs to be torn down, which we hope is a few more years, but we're not sure exactly how long, but not that long. And then, so we want to discuss the additional, one additional scope item as well. Recently, I mentioned earlier that EPA audit that we had. It was noted by the EPA agents that our current practice of wrenching out the large debris and dirt out of the back of the trucks on the yard and having it sort of flow directly into the drainage ditch could use improvement. Along with that, we do a lot of washing out of salt in the back of the trucks in the wintertime, which is extremely cold when we do it outside. So we have looked at a smaller building where we could house some of the hoses and different things that do the heavy debris washout of the trucks in a small enclosed building. We want to consider adding that now, given where we stand with the budget. So we'll get into the specifics of those a little bit more as I move along here. So the proposed scope and improvements that are involved with the salt barn are kind of depicted here in the site plan. The salt barn would be wood framed with a steel lean-to structure, have concrete push walls along the bottom. Currently they're wood. We would switch them to concrete, which are more resistant. There'd be improved lighting, improved functionality given the location and orientation of the building, increased storage capacity, and then updated utilities, be it drainage and things of that nature. The truck washout building, so that The proposed location for the new salt barn is actually in the footprint of the existing building, which is scheduled for demo anyway, at a certain point, because it is past its useful life, or very, very much at the end of it. So that footprint there allows the existing salt barn to stay. The upper right hand and the footprint of the new salt barn, which does have the lean-tos all the way on 3 sides of it, is over the rear end of the existing main building. They're kind of in the middle of the site. The new truck washout, we would have kind of in line with the, as you're heading to the entrance for the new building, that's all the way at the bottom of the screen there. So you'd be able to pass through that, get the big debris out of your truck, and then go enter the building where you would do the traditional washing at the end of each shift. Having that building would improve water quality. It allowed us to treat the water, be more compliant with our MS4. It would be more efficient washout. We would have some stairs in there and different things where the safety of it could be improved. Sometimes there's still times where we're getting up on ladders and things to spray off the top of the truck. This could have those areas incorporated into it. Improve winter operations, and then reduce maintenance and plumbing inside the building. So we do have wash bays inside the building, but if we were to utilize those for the heavy debris, like the dirt that's in the back of the truck, they would clog up, fill up much faster. We'd be sending more water down the sewer. So those would be improvements associated with the truck washout building as well. We have preliminary budgets on these. We haven't had our construction manager do full estimates. This quantity or dollar value for the salt barn here is what was used in the earlier presentations that was eliminated to try to help us stay under budget. That's 1.7 million estimated. The truck washout, we haven't gone through design yet because it's been kind of a new thought of an improvement that we'd like to do to improve the facility. We've got that in there estimated at 750,000, and then if we're looking at the total budget that we would want to use, we would have an incidental line in there for fees associated with the building, much like I described earlier. So it's estimated currently at approximately $2.7 million to reincorporate these portions and add the truck washout building. The picture there is a picture of the locker room, which is actually pretty cool. It's one of the features that has gotten installed in the existing building now that everybody's really excited about. The larger lockers for the guys' gear, they're 2x2. They add a coffee color to the room, so that's the current locker room in the new main building that we're heading to the construction on.
So did you just go back one slide, please?
Yeah, which, back one more? Or?
No, that's good.
Okay.
So the original estimate for the salt barn, when was that done?
So that was back at the start of this construction. It would have been summer last year when we were getting ready to bid.
So that's probably still pretty good.
Yeah, it's not way off. I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of things have normalized a little bit. They've been a lot more flat in the last 12 months than they were in the construction industry the past 2 years, where they were jumping large percentages annually. We haven't seen that as much this year, so I don't think it's far off, but obviously we want to put it through the rest of our consultants to make sure before we do anything. This is just to sort of get a feel for if it's feasible to do this undertaking now, then we would be coming back, with any adjusted different things to make final decisions on whether or not it moves forward. Good.
Yeah. So you don't have, do you have rough drawings for the truck washout building or incidentals?
Not for the truck, and then the incidentals I haven't pulled. It's more of a percentage. It's almost like a contingency at this point. The truck wash we have not begun to design just because it really became apparent of the need more recently in June when we had the audit. So I haven't done anything on that, but the salt barn itself is 95% designed. We included that in the design package for the main building because it was in the original scope. So the design on that building is just needs tune-up. So that's designed in good shape, not so much for the truck washing. So the benefits to contract now, which is why I'm presenting it now, is that the cost of labor and materials is always increasing. Each year that goes by, it will go up. I just said it didn't go up very much this past year, but over the course of 5 or 10 years, it will continue to go up inevitably. That there's no doubt about that. So therefore, this is the cheapest time to ever do it. It will cost more in the future. Construction management efficiency. So we currently have construction oversight contracts with campus and with MRB. If the timing of this was to work out where we could bid it over the winter, which is a great time to bid, we wouldn't have to add on to those professional services contracts. They would be able to, because we're finishing early, because we're 4 months ahead of schedule, they basically said that they would stay on or segment the months that they had accounted for in the price
That's
to
fantastic.
cover this, which could be considerable.
And so that construction that's under Wick's law is not under energy performance, correct?
Oh, no, yeah, this is all.
I know energy performance gets paid on a percentage of the overall project.
Absolutely not. No, every single one of these is bid. The professional services, we try to get 3 or 4 prices because we don't have to do formal bid. But everything on this project, we chose to go with a traditional bid.
And I totally agree. If they're going to, do it at no cost or minimal cost, they're still on site. They don't have to remobilize, and they, I would assume, could use some of the same contractors that are working there currently, so they don't have to remobilize. So I concur.
Yeah, there's a lot of efficiencies. They've indicated that. Number 4 here is exactly what you just said. Motivated contractors from the current project.
Right.
Right, so somebody's there, you know how they're going to bid that. I think we could have some very competitive bid numbers if the people that are already on site are interested. There's efficiencies for them, right? Very
Sure,
real ones.
absolutely.
So then site layout, timing, we have a very clean cut site where there's a lot of knowns, not a lot of unknowns,
Right.
which makes for very competitive bidding, which is what we saw from the budget update. That we were able to capture a lot at bid time.
I think campus has done a great job out there along with your team.
Yeah.
And the numbers reflect that.
Right.
They really do.
Right, yeah, and we've really put a big emphasis on the numbers because we know it's a difficult time right now. So that's why we've got this. So the final effect of what I'm proposing or putting forth here tonight, obviously if we take the total for the current contract price, which includes the incidentals and the contingency, and then we incorporate the salt barn, the truck washout, and the incidentals that are currently accounted for that, we think that the total expense would be right around 24 million, 24,350. If that's the case, then we would still be able to turn the project back in without utilizing the 28,250,000. We would still be tracking or projecting right now to be 3,899,000 underneath that bond approval after completing this component. So we'd like to do next steps on this. We kind of talked about it a little bit, but based on the status of each of the components that I just mentioned, the salt barn, we would need to enter a professional services contract to finalize the design because it's already mostly complete, and then develop the bid documents. We'd have to advertise for bid, and then award and construct. For the truck washout, because it is a new piece to the puzzle, there'd be some minor adjustments. We'd have to go out with professional services to get the design of the building and create bid docs. We would have to amend the current bond language to incorporate the talk of an exterior wash bay building, and then there'd be a minor seeker amendment. The seeker amendment wouldn't change the effectiveness of the project. It's on the same footprint. It's over an existing building, so it would have no material changes in what was happening. The bond amount really is language, not dollars changed. And then we would have to bid and construct it. And that is the current rendering of the proposed barn. It's very similar style to what we have now. Like I said, just updated, given the other one's 40 years old. So questions and comments that are overlaid on that is the current interior of the building. Standing on the mezzanine and the maintenance bay, starting to see the floor pours going in the parking stalls facing east. So it's exciting.
It's impressive. Picture doesn't tell the whole story though. I mean,
No.
You really need to walk in there to see the magnitude of that building.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to getting done, and then I think we're going to do another round of tours to open it up to the public, get some people to go through it and really check it out. It's awesome.
So, I read a kind of a funny story that happened last week. I think you know about it. A guy by the name of Barry Dean, maybe a lot of you guys know him. He worked for the town for 50 years. Town board member for 12 years. Was the highway superintendent, I think, for 15 years. Barry's a great guy. He has a bat phone with me. When he calls, I answer. I respect my elders. And he called me, and he said, "What is this thing, this salt barn and whatever? What's going on there?" And I said, "Well, Barry," because he's skeptical and all that. I said, "You know what you should do? Let's go see Pat. Go get a tour of the place, talk to Pat." So did he take you up on that, Pat?
We did. Met up and took a walk with him
I think it was last
week.
Thursday?
Yeah, Thursday afternoon.
And then about an hour after he took that tour with you and he asked you a bunch of questions about this, he called me and he said, you should definitely go forward with that salt barn and that wash station. I said, well, I'm glad to hear that, Barry. For all the reasons that,
Right.
you know, so that game. The good news is that this is a bid thing. If we proceed on, if we give the blessing for these next steps, you know, if the bids come in higher than what we have an appetite for, then we don't accept the bids and we don't move forward with it. I think, Charlie, we can do that, right?
Sure.
I mean, we don't, I would hope we don't have to do that, but that's, if the bids come in a lot higher than what we thought they were, and the board decides not to accept them, then.
Well, and that'll have a more accurate projections of the cost as, you know, they move forward with the drawings. And Charlie's question goes to you, to allow Patrick to move ahead with the engineering drawings and what's required. We need to put that in a resolution, I would assume, or not?
Well, yeah, but you're talking about keeping it within the same ambit of expenses.
Yeah, so we wouldn't have to increase the bond amount.
Yeah,
We would
that's
have
what
to
I
come
mean.
into
That's what I
award the
mean.
contract. So
Yeah.
we would do professional services, we'd get prices for the engineering.
Gotcha.
That would be the only thing we'd have to expend.
Well, no, there's a
upfront.
new contract, yes, but you've already
Well, there's, I'm gonna
crossed.
guess
for
there's some
this-
resolution.
For this
on
change in
October 3rd.
scope, my question is
Yeah.
to allow Pat to go out and get these drawings and get some, so they have more accurate prices. We need to pass a resolution to that effect because
It's a great question.
but it's still under the bond amount.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's
yes.
my
Oh, yeah.